D-Mace, Finken, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, and Adam Vingan here with you. Willie back in studio wearing his New York Mets hat. I do have to say, Willie.
Why would I?
I wonder why.
Willie, I'm just going to let you know this now.
I'm a big Mets fan.
I'm just going to let you know this now. Juan Soto is not going to give you any of his $765 million for wearing that hat.
None.
But
Nor should he.
But Mets pride is there. How do you feel?
He may not even give you a championship.
Let's not say that right now. Come on, give it.
No promises. No promises.
No promises.
How are you feeling, Willie?
Well, listen, I watched the Mets
Now you're talking to Coach
1992, signed Bobby Bonilla.
Willie.
Very excited. New York native, Brooklyn. Yeah, bring him home, baby. Here we go. And Bobby Bo was going head to head, eye to eye with journalists like Adam, threatening to fight him. It was a debacle. It didn't go well.
And they're still
stunk.
paying him, right?
They're still paying him for the next, I don't know how many Bobby Bonilla days.
I think almost the
alive and
end
well.
of Juan Soto's contract. Though.
Yeah, I think so. It's
I
in
think
the
so.
2030s, I think, is when they'll still be paying him. Whatever day that is, July 1st or 2nd every year.
They get $1 million, right?
Then I saw another New York native, Mo Vaughn.
Oh,
Big
there
money,
we go.
Mo Vaughn. Bring him home.
Yes.
Here we go. Early 2000s. He
Didn't work out.
He ate his way out of the league.
Yeah, pretty much.
They tried to void his contract because he was not in shape. He was eating his way literally out of the league. So let's hope this one goes better. They have. It's not the first time they tried to make the splash. I will say this though about Juan Soto. Unlike those other guys who were a little bit older, a little more past their prime, more question marks, Juan Soto at 26, it's rare to have him be available. So if you're going to splurge, and they did splurge, like franchises don't go for $765 million not too long ago.
Yeah, you're right.
$765 million. That's next level. But if you're going to do it, he's the type of guy that I think.
So do you think he deserve is a hard thing for me to say, because I think if you go out there and you put in the work and you're a great player as Soto is, then who's to say what you are worth? You're worth what you believe you're worth. But because he's not this extraordinary, fielder or something, he's a great hitter.
That's
damn
true.
sure a great hitter. But when you're talking about defense, it's not great. Yeah, it's not great.
It's not great.
Is that too much money for a one-dimensional guy?
He's not a 5-tool guy. There's
Yes.
no question. He's not a great defender.
Because if you look at Shohei Ohtani, yes, Shohei's worth that.
Yeah, Shohei stole 50 bases.
Exactly.
And he might pitch.
Exactly,
Again.
absolutely.
And they're paying way more. But he is an offensive machine with his mastery of the strike zone, his ability to get on base. His career on base is something like 420. That's amazing. And those skills I think will play for at least 5 years. And there is an opt-out after 5 years for Soto, not for the Mets. If he goes south and says, I'd like to stick around for the next 10 years, even if he's done,
I
the
can't
Mets
see
are on
him
the hook.
leaving.
What could go wrong?
Exactly.
What could go wrong? It's the Mets. But look, it was a show of strength going head to head with the Yankees. They have a lot of money. They want to win it.
But it was only $5 million more. He didn't want to go to the Yankees. He didn't want to stay with the Yankees.
I don't know what happened with the Yankees. Like they almost won the World Series. He was there. It worked out well. Why did he not want to go to the Yankees? I don't know.
He likes the color orange, perhaps.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
All of his stuff is there, so he doesn't have to move. He just has to go from the Bronx to Queens. But let's hope, for Willie's sake, that the Juan Soto deal works out better than Bobby Bonilla. So I like riddles, gentlemen. Do you like riddles?
Yes.
All right.
The Riddler.
I have a riddle for both of you.
Okay.
What happens?
Riddle me this.
What happens when you combine a geological aggregate of minerals with its lowest form?
You tell me.
Aggregate of minerals.
When you combine a geological aggregate of minerals with its lowest form.
Now, D-Mace, at Vanderbilt.
Listen.
I'm just telling you, I'm a Vanderbilt graduate.
Okay.
And I did take a class that we
didn't.
in the athletic department like to call Rocks for Jocks.
Did they teach you this?
Geology.
Did they teach
Geology
you this?
101. You had to take it. Had to
Uh-huh.
take a science.
Uh-huh.
It was on the word on the street.
Uh-huh.
Easiest science class you could take if you're not a science
Was
major.
it?
Well, that's what they said anyway.
You just talk about rocks. I mean, how is it not that hard?
Rocks
Not
for
hard.
I
jocks.
didn't think it was that easy.
Exactly. I'm asking you, was it that easy?
No, not
Rocks
really.
for jocks, not
Okay.
to be confused with jock jams.
Okay, give us the answer.
Or Shakespeare, or what was it? Physics for poets was the other one.
If anybody has the answer to this, you can text it in at 615-737-1025. What happens when you combine a geological aggregate of minerals with its lowest form?
Okay.
You get
Nothing.
rock bottom. And that's where we are with our two major professional sports franchises.
Let me just say for the record, that was not taught to me in the Rocks for Jocks class.
That wasn't-
That riddle.
That
Otherwise,
wasn't part of the course?
I would have recounted that. I would have had that. They didn't teach that.
What do you mean? It's not in the syllabus?
Call Vanderbilt right now in the geology department.
All right.
We need to get that in there.
We will do that. We will get that on the next syllabus for Rocks for Jocks. But we've hit rock bottom.
Mhm.
The Predators, winless in 7 consecutive games, their longest winless streak in more than 11 years. And we'll talk about the Predators later on in the program. But yesterday certainly felt like rock bottom for the Tennessee Titans, losing 10-6 at home to the Jacksonville Jaguars, the lowest scoring game of the season in the NFL, 10-6. The Titans, 0 offensive touchdowns. First time this season against, by most measures, the worst defense in the NFL. The crowd was sparse. It was a dreary day in Nashville yesterday. Where do you guys want to start with this debacle?
Well, I mean, listen, you can close your eyes, throw a dart, and you hit a perfect spot, no matter where you start. You can start with the crowd and the non-participation of the fans. That can be a big thing, which I believe it is. You can start with the defense, not getting stops when they need it. They played pretty good for the majority of the game, but we've talked about this each and every week with the defense. Do you make those key stops when they are there to be made? Yes or no? And this defense, more times than not, because of look at their record, more times than not, they have not done those things that we believe a top 5 or top 10 defense should do. So you can go there. You can go with the quarterback. I know he didn't throw any interceptions, but he didn't play winning football either. You can start with the head coach, some of his decisions yesterday. So there's a lot to blame here. So close your eyes at him and just throw a dart, and I guarantee you will throw it in a perfect spot.
I would say in the big picture, whether they won the game or not is not as important as how do you look?
Yes.
How do you look? Are you moving in the right direction? Because you could argue that, let's take the Patriots the last couple times out there, or a couple of Patriots games. Drake May looks good, leads them down the field, forces overtime against the Titans, but they lose. So they keep their spot at the top of the draft. A couple weeks ago, Drake May, they had to bye yesterday, but their last game, May rallies them, puts them in the lead against the Colts, and they lose on the last possession. But they can sit there and go, whoa, Drake May looks pretty good, and we're going to have a high first-round pick. If Levis had really looked good yesterday and they had somehow lost on a fluky play or the defense let him down or something, then you could live with it a little bit more. What's really disappointing, I think, is that Levis has taken a step back after everybody's trying to look around and look for positives from him. And we've been saying, look, these are improvements, but let's not go overboard with the improvements. He's still got a long way to go. And despite still having the long way to go, he went a step back yesterday. That was disappointing. No stats to write home about, no turnovers, but nothing that impacts the game. We looked at the QBR and the passer rating. It's just way, way below average. He is other than Deshaun Watson, who soon will be off of the list of qualified quarterbacks. Will Levis is dead last in QBR for the season. That is, to me, that is the stat to keep your eye on. and that was a not good at all yesterday in that department. He's in the 20s.
Yeah,
That's low.
and this is what I want to stop seeing, because for some reason the last week, 2 weeks, I've been seeing, the comparison of Will Levis there, the first 5 or 6 games, however many games he played before the injury, and then Will Levis after the injury. Stop with that. Stop trying to push this narrative of, it's almost like they're forcing themselves to say Will Levis, just because he's not throwing interceptions, Will Levis is the guy. Stop doing that. Stop. Because listen, he's not playing winning football, okay? He's doing things within the game that, yes, he's not throwing interceptions, but he's doing things within the game that are costing them. So please stop with this narrative of, look how he played the first 6 or 7 weeks compared to how he's one of the top. No, he's not one of the top quarterbacks in the National Football League. So stop it. There's still a question mark above his head. Is he doing the same things that he did the first 6, 7 weeks? No, he's not. And that's great. But he's also not playing the way I believe a guy, after as many starts as he's had, should be playing.
One thing we talked about at the end of last week when we talked about the Jaguars is how bad their defense is and how Will Levis would perform. It was sort of a catch-22, right? If Will Levis goes out there and balls out against the Jaguars, there's that caveat of, well, it was against the Jaguars. If he didn't have a good game, we're talking about how come he didn't have a good game against the Jaguars. And I saw this last week on NFL Pro in the preview section. So the Jaguars entered last week's game, entered last week, having allowed the most yards per attempt, the most EPA, expected points added per dropback, and the highest passer rating in the NFL. So let's just compare the numbers for a second. So before the game against the Titans, the Jaguars had allowed 8.4 yards per attempt, most in the NFL. Will Levis yesterday, 5.3. They had allowed the most EPA per dropback at plus 0.25. Will Levis yesterday, minus 0.44. Highest passer rating, 110.2. Will Levis, 73.4. So even against, by all accounts, whatever metrics you want to use, standard, advanced, the worst defense in the NFL, Will Levis performed like that.
And what's going on with the game plan yesterday, but it was interesting in that they moved the ball reasonably well. They ran the ball well with Tony Pollard. Yeah. It's not like they were getting stuffed at the line of scrimmage. They protected the quarterback pretty well, other than the debacle Hail Mary with 1 second left. It almost got Will Levis killed. I don't know what happened to J.C. Latham on that play. But by and large, they protected well yesterday. But there didn't seem to be a lot there when they went to throw the ball. And I'm putting some of that on Levis. I don't know what he didn't see. There were throws that D-Mace, the three of us were texting, some key throws at key times where if he sees it, delivers it a half second to a second earlier, the play is probably there. But it's one of the things we've been saying. Struggles with that. He doesn't see it, throw it when it's there, and the window will close, or it makes it tougher. But other than that, I was surprised there wasn't more there against the defense that has struggled that much. It's as if, I don't know if the Jags just came back and said, everybody stay way back. We'll give them 3 or 4 yards every time they run it. If they want it, we're going to give them the underneath stuff, but we think they'll screw it up somewhere along the way. And that it worked. They held them 6 points.
There were 3 throws that I think, Will Levis, you have to anticipate it. And that's what, I try to convey to the listeners when I'm talking about the quarterback and his efficiency and how he has to, you may be having completions and throwing it to wide open guys, but do you have the next step in your process? Do you have the ability to anticipate? To Tyler Boyd. It was on the Titans, going toward the Titans sideline. They were going, north. in the stadium because it's I'm saying that based upon where the highway is. So it's they're throwing toward the north end. Tyler Boyd runs an out route, like a 12-yard, 10-12-yard out route. Instead of Will Levis knowing the defense and anticipating that Boyd had slight outside leverage and just throwing the ball out there before he even makes his break, or just as he's making his straight break, throwing it out to the sideline, he waited till he got out of his break and then decided to throw it. Well, by then, the defensive back had already got a bead on it, and he just was able to put his hand in there and knock the ball away. If you hit your back step, know what the defense is doing, and throw it out there, that's a catch. That's the first one. The second one is so obvious, everybody understands this. Chig Okonkwo was wide open. I don't think he had much pressure. He may have thought he had pressure, but I don't think he had a lot of pressure. He missed a wide open guy. He said he threw it to the guy that he saw open. How didn't you see Chig Okonkwo? He was right there in the same lane as the other tight end. That's another one. And then there was another one later in the game, I think on the last drive. Chig Okonkwo is running a out route. Instead of, again, there's a hole in there. Throw it to that hole toward the sideline. Make it a sideline catch where you got to tap his toes. He threw it behind him. That's three. And I didn't even talk about the Calvin Ridley throw early. I mean, on a fourth down where Calvin Ridley went out of bounds.
That was the third down.
Yeah, a third.
Where he
should
got
have
it.
threw
It should have
that
been an easy
early.
first down.
Yes, he should have threw
He
that
late.
early.
He didn't have a chance to get the angle
Exactly.
to the sticks where there was nobody around
And
him.
people, and I know people are looking at it and blaming Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley is running. He's running full go. If the quarterback throws it when he needs to throw it, instead of throwing it late, he catches that ball and he turned up. You know why I know he threw it late? Because when Calvin Ridley got the ball, he thought he was out of bounds. That's how late that ball, like in your mind, like 1, 2, 3, boom, it's there, throw it, let him turn up the field. He didn't do that. He probably was looking at the corner route first and then tried to come back down. But the defense had already declared, throw it to the short guy, let him turn it up and see if he can get the extra yard. And he did not do that. So that's 4 throws. Never mind interceptions he didn't throw yesterday. That's great that he didn't throw it. But he had 4 throws that would have been critical, that were critical throws in the game to me that he did not make.
Tim from Jackson is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Tim, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, guys, Derek, there was one in that last drive where we threw a screen and he threw it for an 8-yard loss. And the first thing the commentator said after that is, why didn't you just throw it out of bounds and have 3rd and 5 instead of 3rd and 13?
It's awareness football.
Play.
Yeah.
That is the play. That's the reason Will Levis is where he is. He can't think. He don't think. And he's got no business in the pros.
Thanks for the call, Tim.
I'm not going to say he has no business being in the pros. I think he can play in this league, but I don't think he's a everyday starter. Can he play in this league? Absolutely, Will Levis can play in this league. I've seen guys worse than him stick around for 5, 10, 10, 12 years. Will Levis can play in this league, but he's just not ready. And I'm not sure if he ever will be ready. He's not ready to be an everyday starter.
One thing that also stood out to me yesterday, guys, when evaluating Will Levis's performance, pressure was not an issue yesterday.
No.
Will Levis was pressured 5 times on 34 dropbacks yesterday, by far his lowest pressure rate faced of the season. So this was not an issue of Will Levis playing like that while constantly pressured by the Jacksonville Jaguars. He had time to make plays. And as you just pointed out, Derek, and laid it out in great detail, despite that, he wasn't able to make those plays.
No, he wasn't. And this is what, and listen, again, if you close your eyes, throw a dart at the board, you will hit. No matter where you hit, it will be a problem that the Titans have. So I'm not saying that it's all Will Levis's fault. But listen, if you want to change the forces of a franchise, what needs to happen? That's a rhetorical question, okay? It's not meant for anybody to answer. You need to have a quarterback. And right now, again, I don't believe at this juncture the Tennessee Titans believe they have a quarterback right now. And I don't know if it's going to change. So if that is indeed the question, they need to go get another one.
615-737-1025. We are here for you. If you would like to vent about the Titans' 10-6 loss to the lowly Jacksonville Jaguars, even though I guess you're just as lowly, but the Jaguars are also lowly. So if you would like to vent, call us, text us, 615-737-1025. We'll take them all show long on our text and phone lines driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com at 615-737-1025. Coming up next, there is an issue that has plagued the Titans all season long. It continues to be an issue, and we'll break that down next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
All right, let's talk F&M Bank. I need to check on one of the lines that I asked, but I had a very good weekend in our Take It to the Bank at 1:45 every Friday on our show. We have a blast with that, and it's brought to you by our friends at F&M Bank. Banking made easy on purpose. Banking made easy on purpose. Look, it's the holiday time. You got a lot going on. Just got done with Thanksgiving. Got to think of Christmas shopping. You got your holiday plans going on. You're thinking about 2025 and your finances. So a lot on your mind. Wouldn't it be nice if you're working with a financial partner that makes your life easier, your financial life? That is what F&M Bank is all about. They've got 20 locations. Your business means more to them, regardless of where you are in your lifetime, whether you're just coming out of college, you're newly married, whether you're a business owner, wherever you are, they've got great tools with that in mind, that goal. Banking made easy on purpose. 20 locations. Just go to myfmbank.com to find the nearest one. myfmbank.com. Banking made easy on purpose. F&M Bank.
Tune into the Chase McCabe and Big Joe show tomorrow from 9 to 11 for your chance to qualify to win a pair of tickets in the all-inclusive Eurostone Club at Bridgestone Arena and see Brett Eldridge live on Friday, December 20th. The Brett Eldridge ticket contest is supplied by Green Trees, a family-owned cannabis company. Check them out online at greentrees with a Z company.com. I just want to answer one quick text because somebody wanted to know where the Titans are in the draft order now. So I pulled up tankathon.com. The Titans are slated to pick 6th in the NFL draft based on the games yesterday, behind Las Vegas, the Giants, New England, Carolina, and Jacksonville.
Man, I was about to say there's 5 teams worse than the Titans. Good Lord.
I was thinking it might
Well,
be
it
a little
hadn't
higher,
hit
too.
rock bottom yet.
I guess not. It did feel like rock bottom. Ben is on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Ben, we are here for you. Thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Yes, I just have a comment on the Will Levis. I think that he's a streaky passer, that you have to get him involved early. And I thought that was part of the problem. There was so much run and that he never got into a rhythm. And then when they're called upon to be in a rhythm, it's not there. And at a young quarterback, I believe he is not there yet like a veteran would be, to be able to just pass when needed. He has to get a streak going.
Thanks for the call, Ben. And let's talk about that for a minute. So that opening drive, was it 8 consecutive run plays?
Something to that effect.
I mean, the run was working.
Yeah,
they were moving up the
They
field.
moved.
They were moving up the field.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think that that's too long to wait to give the quarterback his first pass attempt of the game?
Listen, if it's not broke, what is the adage?
Don't fix it.
Don't fix it.
It wasn't broke. They were running the football down their throat. They were imposing their will, against the Jaguars. If I'm getting 4 yards a pop, I'm not changing what I'm doing until you consistently stop me. That's just the name of the game. Like, if the Titans chose to, drop back and throw it 4 or 5 times or 6 times and Jags didn't stop them, keep doing it until they prove they can stop you. So I understand what the caller was saying from the standpoint of getting your quarterback into a rhythm. But even your quarterback has to know, first and foremost, we got to get this offensive line into a rhythm. We got to get them going. We got to get those big bodies, sweaty and moving, get them joints all loose. And then we can probably do something in the passing game. I think the way that they ran the football helped with the pass rush.
Okay, Richard Simmons, I'm thinking of you here. So let's get these big guys all active and sweaty. We can go with Olivia Newton-John if you'd like as well.
I didn't want to say oil, but good now. I didn't want to say that.
Okay.
All right, no.
All right, let's steer this ship back on track.
But I understand what the caller was saying. But if you're doing something well and they haven't stopped it, especially that early in the game, then keep doing it. Because that's what those offensive linemen, they love when you run the football. They love it. So keep doing it.
I think if it's key plays at key times.
Yeah.
We're making excuses if you're saying, well, they ran it 20 times, even though they ran it well. They should have thrown a couple. That's reaching. I think the quarterback has to play the game plan. You take what the defense gives you. I'd be totally fine with 200 yards passing or less if, when you had opportunities, and there were 2 giant drives in the game, where if they just punch it in, they win the game. When they were stopped on downs in the second quarter, where they had a long drive, where it's controlled passing game, it's timely runs, they move the ball down the field and they don't get any points, because at the key time, when it's time to punch it in, they don't make the play. And then at the end of the game, the more glaring one was they fell behind, they come back and make a drive. They've got 1st and goal. And then the 2 plays that we talked about, where he's got Ridley for an easy first down. He throws it late. Ridley can't control his momentum. He can't angle to the first down. Yard marker, he goes out of bounds 2 yards short, where there was no defense nearby. If they just execute that play, it's an easy first down. And then the next play, where it's catchable for Westbrook-Ikhine, but the throw is a little late. It's a little behind. If he throws it on time, I think it's an easy touchdown. It's just lack of execution. Those are the kind of plays that swing your ratings to a much better efficiency right? You don't have to throw for 350 yards or anything like that, anything close to it. Winning football yesterday would have just been 4 or 5 key plays, winning plays at the key times.
The issue I was alluding to before the break was the red zone. The Titans went 0 for 2
Bingo.
in the red zone. This from the Tennessean. The Titans have turned 34 red zone trips into 16 touchdowns this season. That's a 47% rate going into Sunday. The league average was 55%. The Titans have turned 16 goal-to-go opportunities into 9 touchdowns. That's a 56% rate. The league average before games played on Sunday was 73%.
I believe we covered that on our show last week.
Indeed, we did.
And on the defense, it's reversed. And yesterday was another example. They lead the game, and sometimes the defense has to win you the game.
Mm-hmm.
And the defense could not hold a 6-0 lead against a very anemic offense, especially at the end of the game, still up 6-3. If you can at least hold them to a field goal, you can come down and win the game 9-6. Maybe that's what it takes on that day. But when you need the key stop at the key time, what happens? Jacksonville gets the 1 touchdown of the game. It's happened way too often for the Titans defense too. That's why they're 3-10 and not something like the quote unquote competitive 6-7, 7-6. I mean, they're not that far from that. Think about all of the games where just a little bit better areas here, not helping the other team. Couple more key plays. That's 3 games easy, but that's what you are.
That's the difference between a bad team and a semi-good team. They're not even a semi-good team at this point.
The other issue, and ESPN does a good job of tracking this, I wanted to see Will Levis's performance in tight games. So ESPN tracks quarterback stats in the fourth quarter when the score is within 7 points. These are Will Levis's numbers this season as a whole when the score is within 7 points in the fourth quarter, because he had multiple opportunities to rectify this yesterday. He is 19 for 43, which is a 44.2% completion percentage for 204 yards, a touchdown, and 3 interceptions. By my rough math yesterday, in those situations, he was 3 for 9 for 41 yards.
He hasn't, and those are the things to me that are, that shows me, is he making progress? Because right after Jacksonville scored, I text you guys, this is an opportunity for Will Levis to sort of change the narrative about himself with the fans. They probably give him a little grace if he can lead this team to a touchdown sort of winning drive. That last drive was it was the second to last drive, because the last drive was just a debacle. And he was not, or the team was not able to do it. It all will fall back on the quarterback. There were throws that he made late. There was throws that he's missed. In those times, because the Titans have had too many close games. So if you're going to have these close games, which the league wants across the board, you got to have a quarterback that, I may play all right to bad, throughout the game, but in those critical times, as we talk about the defense, in those critical moments, what are you doing? That's why Kansas City Chiefs are 11-1 and you are 3-9, because in those critical times, they have the guy. I'm not comparing him to Patrick Mahomes, and there's not many guys you can compare to Patrick Mahomes, but they don't have a guy. Kansas City has that guy. They don't worry about it.
Do you know what the Chiefs' record is in one-score games this season?
They won all.
10-0.
Yeah, they won all of them. They got blew out by Buffalo.
They're 10-0 in one-score games.
Exactly. And that's not necessarily because they're better than everybody, because if you watch those games, they're not better than everyone. They just have a quarterback that can make plays when plays are there to be made. Will Levis, on the contrary, there was a play in the end zone to be made, 2 of them to be made. And you didn't have rush on either throw, I don't believe. And you didn't find the man on one, and you sort of waited till the guy got open on the second one, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, instead of knowing the coverage again. Knowing the coverage, anticipating it, and throwing it to where only my receiver can get it. He hasn't mastered that yet. Hell, he hasn't even made that a consistent part of his game yet. So how can I say Will Levis is getting better and he should at least get another shot at being a quarterback next season?
Matthew in Nashville says, if NWI doesn't drop the game-winning touchdown at the end of the game, none of this is a discussion.
I don't know about none of it. Now, I did want to ask you about that catch or non-catch, D-Base, because you always say if you get two hands on it, you got to come up with it. And I do think, to his credit, Nick Westbrook-Akine has made some big catches this year, and that was one where I thought it was going to be the next in the line of his weekly touchdown catch.
See, here
is that a should have had it? Is that a could have had it? What is
he
it?
could have had it. It hit his hands. He could have. It was a difficult catch, but see, here is not necessarily a problem, but here's what happens when you catch touchdowns in 8 out of the 9 games that you've played. Now people expect you to do it no matter what. Like, no matter how difficult the throw is, they expect you to come up with it. And great, you should expect that because he's been one of the bright spots on this team, at least from a passing standpoint. But again, when I look at that play, it's a simple corner route. You take your inside release, you put pressure on that safety, and you get out to the corner. It's sort of a layered throw. They got the underneath guy, and they got the over-the-top guy. If Will Levis anticipates the throw, he anticipates where my receiver is going to go, throw it to that back corner where only the 6'3" Nick Westbrook-Akine can get it. And you didn't do that. You threw it high and behind him. Should he have caught it? Nick Westbrook-Akine probably thought he should have caught that. So if he thinks he should have caught it, I believe he should have caught it. But you make that an easier throw. If you anticipate people, that's all I talk about with quarterbacks. The best ones anticipate what's going on and they deliver the football. Will Levis hasn't reached that point yet. And I'm not sure if I'm the Titans, I'm willing to wait on that.
Well,
past this season.
That is going to continue to be the question because I think he was moving along a path. If you're looking at progress, you know, I remember peeking into the school teacher, you know, she had a little spiral thing, got everybody's grades and everything. You got these little marks, you know, your chart.
Was this during Rocks for Jocks class?
No, this was earlier. This was more like third,
middle
fourth
school,
grade.
yeah.
Check and make sure you're
elementary.
You're peeking in. Oh, Mrs. Shane, she's got a notebook open there. How's so and so doing over there? How am I doing? But he was moving up, right? He was going to like failing grades. Like he was disastrous early. We all know that, and he was coming out of it a little. But you're thinking, I need some A's. I need to ace the test here and there. I need to exploit a bad defense and show that I can dominate a game. If you're trying to grade well enough to earn the job next year. And this was a step back. Somewhere in here, you got to have a game where you wow people and dominate, even if it is against a bad team. Like you were saying, what's the alternative? The alternative is, well, he did great, but it was against the Jack. That's way, way better than what we saw yesterday, where it's a blah performance and you have chances, right? Even though it's kind of an ugly game, you had chances to be the difference in the game. I don't want to put it all on him, but the whole franchise can't really move forward with him unless he has moments like that.
615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your thoughts on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Nashville's best deal this week is 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. 312 Pizza Company serves the best pizza in town, as well as Chicago-style eats like Chicago dogs, Italian beef sandwiches, and more. Check them out at 371 Monroe Street in Germantown. Order takeout online at 312pizzaco.com. Head to theGameNashville.com/deals now to get half off a $30 gift card to 312 Pizza Company while supplies last.
Now, can you dig it? No. I love that commercial. Oh, man, it's D-Mace here. And let me tell you about, Zen Sports. Because, listen, in the month of November, they had the big game sweepstakes. and they pick the winner for the grand prize to go to the Super Bowl. And you just thought, okay, they picked the winner. I'm done. No, they're not done yet. They're giving you another opportunity. Now that it's the month of December, closing in on Christmas time. They want to give you a Christmas present or early Christmas present here. And it's about the big game sweepstake college edition, people, not the pros, but the college edition. This time, instead of going to the big game for the pros, they're giving you a chance to go to the very first big game in the new college football tournament. And we got everything all set up. All the teams are ready to go, people, whether you love it or not. Every team that is in the playoff, they have a place they're going to go to play. So with a grand prize of $10,000 and 2 tickets to the biggest college football game of 2025. Yes, and I'm talking about the one south of us in Atlanta, and the ability to earn entries on every bet you place in December. It doesn't get much better than this. If you don't win, don't worry about it. If you don't win a grand prize, don't worry. You'll also have a shot to win one of 10 small prizes, which grants you $1,000 toward any college playoff game in 2025. So what are you waiting for? Head to zensports.com/sweepstakes for a full list of the rules and earn a $100 no danger wager on your first bet. That's Zen Sports, where betting just got better. Remember, gambling problems, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 years or older to bet here in Tennessee.
lot of positive things. Disappointed in the outcome, but our defense played their tails off today. I thought we covered well on special teams. They were challenged to not let them start outside the 30. We never let them do that. We played great run defense for most of the game. And then at the end of the day, we needed to score in the red zone. We were 0 for 2 down there, and that's the difference in a tight ball game, in a divisional game. And that's you got to score touchdowns down there, and we didn't. So we're 0 for 2, and that's the difference in the ball game. Again, I thought there was a lot of positive things. We put ourselves in position and didn't execute when we had to have it the most, which is down there tight. Again, I'm disappointed in the outcome, certainly. But at the end of the day, we didn't do enough to win again. So go ahead.
That was Brian Callahan after yesterday's 10-6 loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars. The first words out of his mouth were a lot of positive things. And I know it's the coach's job to accentuate the positive, right? I feel like a lot of people were irked by the fact that after they lost 10-6 to the Jaguars, the first thing that came out of his mouth was a lot of positive things.
Well, let's go back to what we've talked about a lot of times when these things come up. We're analyzing a quote. And look, we could come up with double-digit examples during a tough season where people are going to jump on a bad quote. It happened at the end of the Vrabel thing, right? If you want to play gotcha about that, I get it. But again, not taking it out of context, right? And you take the whole quote, which we played. If your game plan is both defenses are backing off, not giving up cheap points, and the Titans believe we're going to win this game we have a better defense and we're going to make the key plays at the key times. Derek, your Titans teams for a long stretch won a lot of games, 17-13, 19-17. That's how they needed to win yesterday, and they didn't do it. So I can see where Brian Callahan saying a lot of our game plan worked. We ran the ball really well. We put ourselves in position to score points, and then we screwed it up. And I agree, Adam. He should have not led with that. You lead with, we didn't get it done, something like that. And then you can work into, look, we did the game plan we wanted to do. We came up short. I do remember some games when you guys were 8-8 in the early Tennessee Oilers days in particular, where you guys would control the ball. Eddie George, have the ball 35, 40 minutes, ball control, but not punch it in for the end zone. You could dominate a game and have 9 points on the scoreboard where you had 3 great drives, 8 up clock, and just didn't punch it in. And then the other team makes one big play, and next thing you're down 10-9. So that's the kind of game that it was yesterday. I thought for the most part, they were the better team, and Jacksonville kind of stole the game at the end. But I don't like when we pile on a quote from the coach. But I get it. I get it.
It's the optics of it isn't good because you're playing a team that, if they are not equal to you, they're definitely not better than you. Y'all both are basically on the same plane in a sense. You could say the Titans are better than them because the Jags at the time had a worse record, but now they both got the same record. So who's the worst team? Well, the Titans are because they lost to the Jags. But perception is reality as much as we, hate it. That's just the thing. And the only way you can change that perception is if you go out there and you start winning football games. But you can't lead with, we did a lot of good things out there. Well, if y'all did a lot of good things out there, y'all would have won the football game against a team that is worse than y'all. A defense that is much worse than your defense, but you're only able to manage to put up 6 points. So you can't leave out. So you can't leave with, hey, we did a lot of great things out there. Cheery, sort of press conference to start it off. Hey, we did a lot of great things, but we lost. No, it should have been, hey, listen, we didn't win a game. There were some things we did good. We need to build on those. There's some things we did bad. We need to correct them. And then sort of move on from there. But when you open it up, I understand that's probably not what he, in a sense, meant. I get that. But when your team has been losing the way they've been losing in the fashion that they've been losing, you can't come on and say, well, I saw we did a lot of good things, because it's like you're almost tone deaf. It's just like, are you seeing what we seeing?
Yeah, because
know?
You should know, you got to read the room. You know
Exactly.
how everybody is going to perceive the
Because
game.
then now people are
You
going to say, what have you seen that was encouraging? What are all the things that you're
And
talking about?
I would bet that that's going to be a line of questioning today, a day after. What
Mhm.
what were all the positives? You scored 6 points against a bad team. So I completely get that. That's media relations. That's coach savvy with the media. And that's maybe a lesson for a first-year young head coach. I get what he's saying, and I hate that is where everybody gets drawn, and not just analyzing why did they score 6 points, right? And not just let's pick apart the words the guy chose to say at the press conference.
It is part of the game, though, of being a head coach.
It is, yes.
in
it is.
in
I
any
have to
sport.
admit it.
And we've talked a lot about some of the things that special teams coach Colt Anderson has said.
Yeah.
They're
Totally.
they're in these
Jeffrey
positions,
Simmons,
right? They're in these positions.
Even
the
Jarvis
coaches,
Brownlee,
right?
right? We had a whole conversation about all of those.
Right. The coaches specifically, they are in the spotlight for the first time in their careers, having to answer questions on a regular basis. They are learning some hard lessons and what to say and what not to say and how to say it. So, although I agree with you, Willie, that in the grand scheme of things, it's not top of mind, but it's just piling on to what has been, a disastrous season for the Titans. Spencer is on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Spencer, thank you for holding. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. I just like to comment. Everybody talking about the Will Levis thing. Well, by now, everybody should see that guy's not it. But my point is, you got Brian Callahan, and he's supposed to be a coach, but yet he's a losing coach. He's got a quarterback that he sits on the bench that's played 3 games and won 2 of them 3. You got another quarterback that's played last year and this year and has won 1 game. If he's a coach, he's smart enough to pull out the losing quarterback and play the winning quarterback. But then everybody said, let Rand cook. Y'all see what he cooked? He burnt the whole damn kitchen up.
Thanks
Made a mistake by getting rid of Vrabel.
Thanks for the call,
Because
Spencer. I understand where Spencer is going with this. Mason Rudolph, Will Levis. At this point, the season is over. Not that we needed confirmation, but the Titans have mathematically been eliminated from postseason contention. That's been the case for several weeks. We didn't need to see the little E next to their name in the NFL standings, but it is official now that the Titans will miss the playoffs again. So there's no point to putting Mason Rudolph in at this point.
No, definitely not. T-Mace, here's the question I have based on that discussion there, because I think we know that we know what Mason Rudolph is. At this point, you're just trying to give Will Levis as much data as you can, just so you can make a fair evaluation at the end of the season. Is he back next year as the starter? Is he back next year as the backup? What do you do? Well, for a couple of weeks there, they played the Chargers and the Vikings, for example. Will Levis's stats were better, and especially when you consider they're playing against pretty good defenses, you say, all right, I see what you're saying. That's progress. A couple penalties could have changed some things, etc. Okay, so now you should go to town against a bad defense in the Jacksonville Jaguars. Didn't happen. What did you think of the game plan yesterday specifically? This is one where maybe we need to watch the all 22 a little bit more, see what the defense is giving them. But if I'm evaluating Callahan as an offensive-minded coach and a guy that's brought in specifically to jumpstart an offense that in the last 2 years under Vrabel was 26th, 27th in the league. That game concerns me yesterday, right? Like an offensive, I'm hoping for more.
Yeah.
What did you think of the game plan itself?
I don't think it was so much the game plan. I really don't. Because there's only one play that I would sort of like, man, why would you do that? And that was the play right before half, because you know your offensive line isn't great. And what's the likelihood of you throwing up a Hail Mary and you're scoring? I know it's happened a couple of times this season, but what is the likelihood of that? Or is the risk reward there? Is the reward bigger than the risk? In this situation, you damn near got your quarterback decapitated and put out. So obviously the reward wasn't as big as what the risk could have been and was for a moment there, because we were like, man, is Will Levis done now? He didn't fell on the same shoulder again, it seems like. But to me, beside that throw or that play, they ran the ball effectively. He called good run plays. Every run play isn't going to work. And I think he called a good pass. He had a passing game plan. He can't tell Will Levis who to throw it to. Well, he can tell you what's your number one, number two option, but once you're out on the field, he can't force Will Levis to see what he possibly sees on the sideline. He has to trust that his quarterback, that we went over this so much. I'm calling this play because I'm anticipating a defense. You should know what defense I'm anticipating. So look out there, figure out, okay, that's not the defense, or that is the defense. The throws are there to be made. You just didn't make them. I can see if Chig wasn't wide open. Chig was wide open. I can see if Tyler Boyd on that out route wouldn't have been open, but he was open. You just got to throw it out there. You threw it behind him somewhat, where he had to catch it more so to his back shoulder than anything. So the throws are there. The plays are there. It's just you don't have the quarterback that can execute those throws consistently and doesn't see the field consistently.
There's no question I put a lot of it on Levis. I saw some of the timing stuff. I want to see more too. I want to see an offensive minded head coach draw up a game plan and get more results against a bad defense. That was not a good mark on Callahan's resume yesterday.
615-737-1025. After weeks and weeks and weeks of projections, we finally have the actual college football playoff bracket. We'll get into that and the fallout from the field. Coming up next, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. D. Mace, Finken, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Before we get into the college football playoff, some college basketball news to pass along. The Tennessee Volunteers are number 1 in the country. The Tennessee Volunteers men's basketball team moves up to number 1 in the latest AP poll. Kansas, previously number 1, has lost 2 in a row. They lost to Creighton and Missouri. So Tennessee, number 1 in the AP top 25 poll. 3 of the top 5 teams are SEC teams. Auburn at number 2, Kentucky at number 5.
Let's take a look at the SEC because Mitch Light put this out. Vanderbilt had another good win yesterday as well. Basically a road game. It wasn't in TSU's home venue, but it was down in Fort Worth, Texas, or whatever. So Vanderbilt's 9-1. Vanderbilt was predicted to win or to be dead last in the SEC. There are 16 teams in the SEC. Vanderbilt in the KenPom ratings is 15th of 16, and they are 60th in the KenPom. South Carolina is 16th, and they are 68th. So all 16 teams in the league are 68 and better. We mentioned last week they went 14-2 straight up against the against the ACC in a head-to-head. Mitch Light, he mentioned it to me yesterday. He goes, this might be the best pre-conference performance by any league in any season in college basketball. When you look at Auburn, Tennessee, Bama, Florida, Kentucky, all of those teams are in the top 10 of the KenPom. Then you have teams that are not known as basketball programs. Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Ole Miss. They're between 20 and 30. It's not just a deep league. That is like incredible stuff. It's the best pre-conference I think the league has ever had, and it's one of the best pre-conference performances that we've ever seen in college basketball. And Tennessee's right at the top.
So Tennessee, number 1 in the AP poll for men's college basketball that just released. So the college football playoff rankings came out over the weekend. First, before we get to those, congratulations to Vanderbilt going bowling.
Yes.
The Birmingham Bowl against Georgia Tech on December 27th. So,
boom.
You getting your tickets, Willie? Now, you may have to
wish.
work.
Yeah, the Predators have a
Yeah.
game that
Yeah.
day. That's the day after the Christmas break of the NHL. So I will be watching on TV. But I am fired up that they are in that.
Yeah.
Georgia Tech's pretty good, by the way. That's not an easy matchup.
But they both play sort of the same type brand of football.
Yeah, it'll be interesting with opt-outs and transfer portal dynamics,
Yeah.
what the matchup ends up looking like. I think early on, Georgia Tech is a slight favorite.
So let's go through the 12-team bracket. Let's just start with how it all panned out. Oregon, number 1. No surprise there. So these are the 4 teams that get the bye. Oregon at 1, Georgia at 2 after winning the SEC, Boise State at 3, Arizona State at 4. So those 4 programs have byes into the quarterfinals. The rest of the field, the matchups, 5 versus 12. Clemson at Texas. The winner plays Arizona State. 8 versus 9. Tennessee at Ohio State. The winner plays Oregon. 11 and 6. SMU at Penn State. The winner plays Boise State. Number 10 and number 7. Indiana at Notre Dame. Winner plays Georgia. First team out, Alabama. Second team out, Miami. So let's start here. Any qualms with the field itself?
For me, no. I mean, listen, you don't lose 3 games and don't lose to Oklahoma the second to last game in that fashion that you did. And there's no argument. Alabama is in over SMU. But you didn't. So now I don't care about your strength of schedule. You didn't win. They made it to their championship game. You didn't make it to yours. You had an opportunity to. You dropped a game and then you dropped another one. You didn't even make it to your championship game. So there's no argument to me a serious argument that would make me change my mind. If you just want to go to the strength of the schedule, then have it all day, because you can go to other teams that have just as hard a schedule as you, and either they went out and they did what they were supposed to do, or they're right at home with you, in a sense of they're not playing in college football playoffs either. So if your argument is just strength of schedule, look who Alabama played. Well, the committee already told you it don't matter. They didn't even make it. They didn't even make it to their conference championship game, Willie. And you know how much I like Alabama.
Okay.
And they didn't even make it to that. So they don't have a argument in this. They're just hoping and praying.
Argument. They have an argument.
Willie, they're just hoping and praying. Oh, I hope and pray Clemson lose.
There is a strong argument. Now, I think that can you sit there and say, we got screwed? I don't know. You have to say, look, it's at least a coin flip, though. Here is how I would put it back to you, Adam. You tell me. I want you guys both answer this.
Mm-hmm.
When Penn State is sitting there at number 6, and they are about to unveil who they play, and it's going to be SMU or Alabama. You are James Franklin, and you're sitting there. Who do you hope comes up on that board? Who do you hope?
Oh, no. Okay. You're asking me.
Who do you want
based
to play?
upon this season? Based upon this season. I don't care who I play, because neither one of these teams, especially Alabama, they have shown they can't stop a nosebleed with the tissue and my head turned to the sky.
You're avoiding the question.
I'm not avoiding the question.
You're avoiding the question. Who do you want to play? Alabama?
Alabama. I would want to play Alabama.
You'd rather play Alabama.
Because their defense is
trash.
I
think you're crazy.
You're crazy. Willie, their defense is trash. Can I say that again? Their defense is trash.
In the SEC, where everybody's good.
Their defense is trash, period.
Okay, how's SMU's defense?
I don't care about SMU's defense.
You don't care? Wait a minute. If James Franklin has to care. All right, Adam, so how about you? Who do you hope comes up on that board?
Alabama.
That was the question in my mind.
I answered it.
When I was watching it. Yeah, okay, you said Alabama. You're crazy. But and Adam, just keep in mind, I will remind you on the witness stand as I'm pounding.
No.
You.
Don't try to.
You have been on the record.
Leading the witness.
You have been on the record saying Penn State cannot win the big game. They can't win the big game. So you're Penn State. You're hosting a playoff game. Who would you rather play? Yes, Alabama
Your Honor,
or SMU?
Your Honor, he's leading the witness. Can you strike that, please?
Judge,
he's leading the witness.
Judge David, but deny your request, Steve Mace. Adam, answer Willie's question.
See, Dave. See the judge in chambers, Steve Mace.
You'll see me in my chambers.
Answer the question.
Okay, what you got?
It is a tough question.
It
is a tough question.
Well, you know the answer.
He doesn't know the answer.
Yes, he does.
Quit leading the witness. Quit badgering the witness, Willie.
So here
quit badgering the witness.
That is true. Penn State can't win the big games.
Here comes Alabama.
So it don't matter who they play.
Here comes Alabama to town. The tradition. They've beaten Georgia.
I don't give a damn about the tradition.
They are better than SMU.
How do you know? They hadn't played each other.
Their record is better. They had a tougher road. They played a much tougher schedule.
They lost to Oklahoma, who's a bad team.
Oklahoma's 6-6. That was at Oklahoma. It was a bad loss, but it is a pathway through a season that was much more difficult than SMU. And I am happy for SMU. I love when other teams get into the dance and it's not just reserved for all of the traditional powers every year, same teams. So I'm happy for SMU. I hope they do well. But if I'm being honest, and Nick Saban said it, and Nick Saban's going to be accused of being biased for Alabama, but to his credit, he is consistent every year with this. He's been saying this for 10 years, even when it doesn't benefit Alabama. If we're not going to look at strength of schedule like we do in the college basketball tournament committee, where they say, hey, if your record is 21-8, but you haven't played anybody versus a team that's 17-12, but has played a much tougher schedule, who gets in? The 17-12 gets in every year. So that principle is not applied here.
All right. To answer your question, I was on record last week as also saying I thought it would set a bad precedent if a team that made it to its conference championship game and lost missed the playoff because they lost their conference championship game.
Okay.
I believe SMU was the right decision. To answer your question about Penn State, I do think James Franklin might be slightly more worried about Alabama.
Slightly
More worried about Alabama.
Penn State has got to love it. They lost the Big Ten championship game, and you can argue they have a better pathway into the semifinals than Oregon does. Oregon has to play in the Rose Bowl against Tennessee or Ohio State. That is going to be a tough game. Penn State is a 9-point favorite already in the opening line against SMU at home. And SMU was fun to watch. They're scrappy. I love that comeback they made. It was awesome. They're a great story. But Penn State should beat them on their home field. And then they get to play Boise State. Who would you rather be, Penn State or Oregon? Who's got a better pathway to the semifinal?
Based upon,
It's a toss-up.
Yeah. I mean, based upon that, one can say that Oregon would have the harder road to a national
And I would not feel as strongly about that if Alabama was going to Penn State.
Well, let's play. Do we have the clip, David, of Nick Saban that Willie alluded to? This was Nick Saban following the reveal of the college football playoff on strength of schedule and what that could mean for scheduling moving forward.
Yeah, but my point earlier was that if SMU was 8 and they played in the conference championship game and they lost by 3 points, they shouldn't be penalized for that necessarily. But my question about all the strength of schedule, 15th strength of schedule versus 60th strength of schedule, that should have been taken into consideration before they ever played in the championship game. All right, so maybe they're ranked 12th, and if they win the game, they get in. If they lose the game, Clemson gets in. All right, so, but it wasn't that way. So now it looks like they have to get penalized. But if it was done based on strength of schedule to start with, that wouldn't have been the case. So I really, think that playing in this conference, and I played in this conference for over 20 years. And when you have to go play Tennessee, then you got to go play LSU. All right, then that team that you play next, you may be more vulnerable to. And you have to have a very mature, competitive team that has a lot of depth to be able to play through all these circumstances. And it's very, very difficult. And to not take into consideration when you don't beat one top 25 team, not one top 25 team, and you went through your whole season and never had to, Indiana didn't do that. SMU really didn't do that. So it makes a huge difference.
That was Nick Saban. And by the way, athletic director of Alabama, Greg Byrne, said in a post on X last night, "We have said that we would need to see how strength of schedule would be evaluated by the CFP. With this outcome, we will need to assess how many P4 non-conference games make sense in the future to put us in the best position to participate in the CFP. That is not good for college football."
Man, stop damn
Don't lose
whining.
to 6 and 6
Stop
teams.
damn whining. Like,
But
y'all
those
are
are good
supposed
teams. Vanderbilt was in the top 25 at one point this season.
Man, this
Oklahoma
reminds me.
At Oklahoma is a tough place to win. Oklahoma was.
I could say Wisconsin's a tough place to win.
We're not talking about with Big Ten. We're talking about the ACC, which is light. It is a light league.
This again.
Nick Saban is an SEC snob. There's no question about it, but he's not wrong. And I get that. I'm an SEC snob. The SEC is being penalized for having a deep, tough league where I do think teams 10, 11, 12 in the SEC are way better, way tougher tests. You're going to tell me that going to Oklahoma, if Oklahoma is the 10th or 11th best team in the SEC, that's the equivalent of the 10th or 11th best team in the ACC? It's not close. And so Nick Saban's point is too, your league schedule is laid out. There's nothing you can do. SMU can't say, well, let's reschedule our conference games so we play the best teams. But the fact is they didn't play some of the top teams in the ACC, which is a fairly weak league by all accounts compared to the SEC. But then Nick Saban was like, well, why would anybody schedule anything but cupcakes outside the league if it's just going to be about your record?
Wasn't Nick Saban the same guy? And listen,
You did mention
Nick-
Wisconsin. You did mention Wisconsin, by the way. Alabama did win at Wisconsin.
won
That
at
was their
Wisconsin,
only
yes.
Power 4 non-conference game this year.
Exactly. So listen, how I feel about Nick Saban, I think I've said that many a times. But Nick is the guy that wanted to have an extra conference game, right?
Yes, he did.
Which would make it tougher, right?
And he is also.
And now
said-
all of a
yeah,
sudden,
he
now
thinks
he
you should only
now-
play Power
exactly.
5.
Now
games.
he
you
walks
shouldn't play
back.
anything outside of Power 5.
Now he walks back from it. Don't lose.
No, he's
three.
not walking back from it. He's saying that's what we should do, but you got to reward teams for strength of
Exactly.
schedule.
Which says that, okay, if y'all are not going to reward it, then we might as well not have the strength of schedule that we have. Listen, you can have an opportunity to play some cupcakes if you want to. If you say our schedule is that hard, then this is the whole SEC sort of thing. Our schedule is the hardest. Our conference is the hardest. Listen, I'm not going to debate that with you. I've become a SEC fan since I moved here in 1997. Okay. Yes, the conference is it is the best conference in college football. I give you that. But if you don't lose 3 games, then you're not in this situation. Alabama wasn't if you watched Alabama play, I get the strength of their schedule. If you watch Alabama play, Alabama was not one of the top 11 teams in the country or top 12 teams.
If
They just were not.
If they played SMU's schedule, what do you think their record would have
They
been?
wouldn't be in the
different?
SEC then. They wouldn't be in the SEC.
But you have to try to compare these two teams.
They're only playing people in their conference. Now, listen, and SMU is only playing the people in their conference. If they schedule, okay, ask Alabama or these teams why they don't schedule an SMU then. Ask them that. Why don't you schedule? Because they can also, in theory, say we want to play that team next year, or we want to play these ACC teams. So we'll get a definitive answer on if it comes down to it in the end with a 3-loss Alabama and a 2-loss SMU. I know they've already played each other in the regular season, or already played an ACC team or two, so we can compare. But yes, they are better than every other ACC team outside of the champion.
I just think it's a different way of settling the score, where for all these years, when a tournament selection committee in basketball has a very, very strong lean towards your strength of schedule, this is completely different. They are admitting that it's just the excitement of seeing a team that has 1 loss or 2 losses versus a team of 3 losses. That means a ton in this criteria. Otherwise, as Nick Saban said, there's SMU. They backed themselves into a corner by putting SMU in there as the 8th ranked team, where they had to sort of have this. Well, let's not penalize a team for losing in their conference championship game. The fact is, they did not win a game all year against a top 25 team.
So
before the ACC championship game.
So if SMU goes out, or Clemson, because both of them ACC teams. So if Clemson beat Texas, and then what is going to be the argument? Can we lay it to rest that, okay, yeah, they got, or if SMU beats Penn State, can we lay to rest the argument of they don't deserve, because then they would have won?
No, I don't think after the fact you look at those things. I think it's
because I think people
criteria?
do. No, because
what's
if they
the criteria
if
to get
they
in?
get blown out, tell me this: if they get blown out, Clemson, if SMU gets blown out, what is everybody going to say? They didn't deserve to be in. See, I told you. But if they win, everybody's going to say, well, they should have won.
Reese Davis did ask the committee chair if that game kept going along the plane, if Clemson blew them out of the water, would that have changed it? And you got a lot of gobbledygook from that guy. That guy did a lot of word salading, and I don't know if he answered a single question in there. I was not impressed with him.
Well, there will be no gobbledygooking on this program. 615-737-1025. What are your thoughts on the college football playoff field? Are you on Team Derek or Team Willie in this conversation? We'll take your thoughts on our phone and text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. We'll also get back into the Titans as well. Coming up in a little bit, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vinkin, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie Donick. Donick, 1025, 1063 the game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Finken there. Got ahead of myself. Talking college football playoff. A spirited conversation there between Willie and Derek. Tristan wants to get in on this on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Tristan, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Yes, I agree with Derek Mason, 60%, but I think records should be taken. Like Army should have gotten it instead of like Clemson because their record is bigger than Clemson because they have one loss, and if they blow out Navy, then and they won their first conference title. And strength of schedule, I think that should be blown out of the water. Like the committee only cares about sponsorships and everything like that. It's just about the money. They really don't care about the fans. And if Alabama went 0-12 and they said, "Oh, strength of schedule," they are like number one.
It's a balance. It's a balance. I see what your
Thanks
point
for calling,
is.
Tristan.
So if you played the number one strength of schedule and you go 0-12, you do not deserve to get in. But Mitch Light was saying this all year long as Army was winning, and Army won their league. I cashed in on the take it to the bank because I called Army to get the job done. But that's a great example. Army only lost one game all year, and that was to Notre Dame. But as Mitch pointed out, that was a very weak strength of schedule. And they didn't even get consideration over Boise State.
CC on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says it was a tough decision for the committee to make. But to Big Bill's point, Saban also mentioned the last time the committee put a non-Power 5 team into the championship game, it was not very competitive. Who can forget TCU versus Georgia? As an SEC
but
fan,
they beat Michigan, though.
They did. They had to win a game to get
exactly.
As an SEC fan, I would have loved to have seen Alabama make it, but I can't argue with SMU after watching how hard they fought against Clemson.
TCU that year, correct me if I'm wrong, did edge Alabama to get that slot right in the semifinals. And then to their credit, they did turn around and beat Michigan. But I think that was a strong argument at the time. And Nick Saban, who at the time was the coach, was saying, maybe we should listen to Vegas. Who would be the favorite between TCU and Alabama, TCU and Michigan? But they didn't get in. So I do think they do need to define and go back and decide what is strength of schedule worth, because they dance around it. They do all of these things. And I do think SMU was misranked at 8th before the conference championship game because they had not beaten anybody all year long in the top 25.
Okay, so let me say this. So if the SEC starts to think about weakening their schedule, and we're talking about their non-conference games.
Wait. But they already do that. Like the only big school that Alabama played this year was Wisconsin. They played, was it, Western Kentucky, Mercer, and I forget what the other one was.
Basically, the league policy is we're going to stick with 8 conference games, and then you will play one Power 5 team.
Yeah, my thing is, don't even play Wisconsin. Just play 4 mushrooms.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but if you lose to one of those, you're out. Period. We're not, because my thing is if you want
for every other league, then
I mean, listen, the SEC is the ones that are throwing all this out there. They're the one that's butthurt about all of this. So if you do indeed schedule, these cupcakes and these little, Smurfs, then if you lose to one of them, I don't care if you're 11-1 and win your championship, you're not in. Point blank.
I'm okay with that.
That the argument has hit its breaking point when somebody says butthurt. Eric is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Eric, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, guys, I'm primarily calling to talk about college football, but one quick thing about the baseball, the signing of Juan Soto. I've said this on the no station. I really believe this is going to happen eventually. I think we're getting to the point within the next 5 to 10 years, and I never thought I'd see this in my lifetime. We're going to have a $1 billion a year player. I believe we're headed towards that direction in baseball. Guys, as far as the playoffs and stuff, I have no problem with Alabama not being in. They lost to Vandy and Oklahoma, so I have no problem with that. I have no problem with SMU. In fact, I think SMU has a shot against Penn State. Even though Penn State's got the easier pass, I would not be surprised if SMU beats Penn State. And I also think Tennessee, Oregon got a tough draw with Tennessee and Ohio State. But guys, I do have an issue, a valid point about strength of schedule. Because if Alabama played Indiana's schedule, I wouldn't believe Alabama deserved to be in. I do have a problem with Indiana's schedule, strength of schedule being like 100, whatever it is, them getting in. The only team they played was Ohio State. They lost. I mean, true, they got in this year, but to me, in their case, it would say, well, why should we play a strong schedule? We're 11-1, and we still got in, even though we played the bottom part of the conference. So
And for that matter, Notre Dame's schedule
Thanks,
wasn't
Eric.
really
Yeah,
tough either. Right, when you get down to it, even some people like to shoot holes in Texas's resume and say, who Texas beat?
Resume was
Who Texas beat? Really
trash too.
But this is the problem with 16 teams leagues, where there's a wide range of how tough your schedule can be within the league. That was an issue with Indiana for sure. And do you guys agree on this? That as much, and look, I'm going to sound like I'm flip-flopping here because I have always said win your league. But when you have a 16-team league and you only play half the teams in your league, how do you really do a true league champion? I think there should be a value on winning your league championship, but Boise State and Arizona State having buys, something is not right with that.
So what you're saying is, even if you're in those conferences,
should Boise State have a bye?
Or, Boise's in a what? I forgot.
Mountain West.
So even if you win, the ACC or the Mountain West, you still shouldn't get a first round bye.
I don't think Boise State, based on who they have beaten and who they have played, should get a bye.
But you did what the committee asked you, right?
Yeah.
You won your conference.
By the criteria, you had to give 4 teams a bye. So Boise State is the number 3 seed by this. Is Boise State the number 3 team in the country?
They're the number 3 seed in the country.
Yes.
That is a fact.
Yes.
So I guess that's a
Did they win that conference?
Should they change? This was another thing Nick Saban said. Should we take teams 1 through 12 and seed them that way, regardless of whether you win your league? And I think you should have value on winning your league, but I see the point. Boise State played one team in the top 25. That was Oregon, and they played them tough. It was very early in the season. They haven't played anywhere near a top 25 team since then. They won all their games.
Maybe they should just give the buys to the top 2 ranked teams, period. That's it. The top 2 ranked teams, regardless if you win your conference or not. If you started out, like, say, for instance, that's a good point about Boise. Boise, you started off as the number heading into championship weekend. What were they? Number 8, 9, somewhere around there, toward the bottom. I think they were at the bottom, toward the bottom. Okay. Even if you win your championship, you are ranked that low. You're still not getting the bye. You will make the playoffs, but it doesn't automatically give you a bye for the next week. We're doing it based upon, wins and losses and stuff like that. So the highest ranked division winner, the 2 highest ranked division winners get buys. And then after that, it's the next ranked team, not the next highest division winning ranked team. So that would have put Boise out. That would have put Arizona State out. Would they have still been in the playoffs? Yes, but they wouldn't have got a first round bye. How do you like that?
I think Boise State, this comes down to strength of schedule. Boise State, by the criteria, having been, I guess, one of the 4 highest ranked conference champions, has a bye. But here are the teams that they beat. And I don't even know who a couple of these teams are. Georgia Southern.
Vandy lost to them.
No, that was Georgia State.
Yeah, Georgia State, not Georgia Southern.
Tomato.
Tomato, it don't matter.
Portland,
Georgia teams.
Portland State. Washington State.
Portland State. Nah.
UNLV twice. San Diego State. 2-5, 3-9. Nevada. San Jose State. Wyoming, Oregon State. That's who Boise State beat. Those are the wins.
So they just beat a bunch of guys with helmets, basically.
Yeah.
Helmets and shoulder pads.
They didn't even play Colorado State, who ended up 6-1 in the league. They didn't play them.
Listen.
So basically, you're looking at a resume that says we played Oregon tough, lost 37-34, and we get a bye over Ohio State, Tennessee, Penn State, all of these teams.
But everybody knew that would be the case
right
coming into
because
this
that's
year.
they kind of thought that the somebody else would probably go grab that bye. But I don't get it. Like they probably thought Clemson or the ACC champ would fit nicely there, and the non-power 4 school would end up playing in the first round. But here's Boise with a bye.
Yeah,
but they didn't play anybody. I love
they
Boise
did
State.
play
That's fun.
somebody. They did play
the teams on their schedule.
Yeah, they just played the team on schedule.
One texter suggested Damien in Nashville says he's on Team Derek. Why not copy basketball and do the conference challenge at the beginning of the season instead of scheduling cupcakes? So at the end of the year, you have a barometer to compare to.
They used to do that with the big team, I mean, SEC, ACC. Remember they used to have it like they used to call it.
But
it wasn't
not
like
the whole league.
Yeah, it wasn't
down,
like a whole league,
really.
but they would, a team from, the Alabama would play the top ACC team like Clemson or somebody, or Michigan or
Well, Clemson
Ohio
played.
State.
I mean, Clemson wasn't the top ACC team, but Clemson played Georgia.
Yeah, they
to open
played
the
Georgia.
season, right?
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
but
and Georgia went fairly easily.
The only way they can get away with that is if they have like basketball, but it's sort of a 3-game series. So those would be your non-conference, whatever division you pick. Like, okay, we're going to play 3 Big Ten teams, or we're going to play 3 ACC teams, or Pac or Big 12 teams. We're going to play those three teams and not play Portland State or not play Southwest Louisiana State, something like that. So I do like the whole basketball, playing in the whatever they call it.
Okay, would you vote? If we're on the committee,
yeah,
and they say vote for this. It's 1 through 12, and we seed regardless of who won the league, or keep it like it is. What would you guys do? What's the better way?
I think teams that win conference titles should be favored.
Should get a bye.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. You say stick with it how it is. You're fine with it.
Yes.
I say
there should be a reward for winning your conference championship.
I say stick with it. If you're going to change it, just say, well, listen, the top 2 teams that win their conference get a first round bye, and then we're sorted out after that.
Yeah, but that doesn't. Then you have to have a different bracket because there's 12 teams. So Tennessee is a 7.5-point underdog at Ohio State. Let's say it's Tennessee at Boise State. What's the line?
Maybe Tennessee by 5.
It's a different line, right? It's not. Tennessee is not a 7.5-point dog at Boise State. So this is my point of. I get it. That's the criteria. That's what they decided. But Boise State getting a bye, I hope they're that good. I'd love to see a Cinderella story and Boise State upends Penn State. That'd be a lot of fun. Or what if it's Boise State against SMU for a chance in the college football Final Four? That would be amazing. That'd be the little guy. That'd be like a NCAA tournament basketball kind of thing.
What was it? What was that tournament team before?
FI, like Florida Atlantic made the
FAU.
Yeah.
FAU.
VCU has made the Final
That
Four.
would be
We
the
get
Broncos.
stories like
the Broncos versus the Mustangs.
Yeah,
that's
the battle of the horses.
Yeah, not a bad matchup. 615-73. Yes, 615. I do like to play the ponies on occasion. 615-737-1025. That's a joke. I've never bet on horse racing in my life. Tennessee Titans head coach Brian Callahan will address reporters momentarily. We will bring his comments to you live. Coming up next, Willie Dunnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Hey, this is Derek Mason, and you heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose some weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a resolution to shed some extra pounds only to come up a few pounds short. But here is a solution at Cool Springs MD. Dr. Lodge and his team understands. You need somebody that's going to understand you, and Dr. Lodge and his staff does just that. So they understand the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and no one else. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. We await Tennessee Titans head coach Brian Callahan. He will address reporters shortly. He was a little tardy last week. Hopefully he'll be more on time today than he was last week. But in the fallout of the loss yesterday, guys, and look, we've been doing this a lot with the Predators lately. When you lose a game the way that the Titans did, you lose 10-6 at home to the Jaguars. It was a poor offensive performance against a terrible defensive team. I made the joke about rock bottom at the start of the show. With everything that's gone on with this team so far this season, Brian Callahan, who we are waiting to hear from, he takes a lot of heat. That's what happens when you're the head coach. You are a punching bag. That's part of the job. Andrew Burnett is going through that right now with the Predators. I mean, how do you feel like Callahan has faced that pressure? He's getting asked tough questions. A lot of fans are wishy-washy, to put it lightly, on his effectiveness as a head coach. Based on what we've seen from Brian Callahan, how do you feel like he's handled that pressure?
I think he looks like a rookie coach. I had somebody throw this to me. He goes, "What do you think? Where do you think he needs to grow in the area of CEO?" And I think that's a good way of putting it. I think he can grow. And I do think Mike Vrabel, from year 1 to year 2 to year 5, improved at game management, CEO kind of stuff. And I hope Brian Callahan is given a chance to grow into it a little bit more. But I do think it's clear that he looks like a rookie head coach at times.
Well, I mean, it looks like a rookie, in a sense, a rookie / first year staff, meaning they've all been together. But yes, it looks that way. But I mean, I guarantee you can go to every head coach, and ask them how much different their first year was compared to their second year, just from as they call it, from a CEO standpoint, how much different it was from your first year to your second year. We saw some blunders that Vrabel made in his first year. He didn't make those same blunders in his second year because he learned from them. Now we can sort of, question his coaching hires, even after the first year. But I think some of the CEO things, some of the on-field things, he learned that first year, and then he was able to be better that second year. The only bad part about being a head coach in this league is they don't put you through a head coaching class, like a head coaching class. This is what it's going to be. They throw every scenario from interviews, all the stuff. It's not like that. So your first year is your first year, which is like a trial year.
Brian Callahan is at the podium. We take you there now.
What it ends up looking like. Will came out of the game for the time being okay. There wasn't anything that obviously from the side, just a little bit of pain, but I don't see anything hopeful that's not anything more than what it was in the game, and we should be good. But again, we'll let a couple days go by. Harold obviously came out of the game and came back, so he was good. And we'll see where the guys that missed the game are at this week too. Hopefully we'll get Roger back this week, but we'll see where that ends up. So nothing major injury front wise, just normal procedure for us, and we'll see what we look like come Wednesday and throughout the week. After the game, after watching the tape, it's the loss was tough to swallow. There was a lot of things, and I know maybe the choice of words on something being positive in a 10-6 loss. I get that that's not well received, but I challenged the team to do a lot of things in this game the night before the game, really sort of across the board at all positions, and they really answered the bell in a lot of the phases and a lot of the things I had challenged them on, and that part to me was really encouraging. Because to do the things that were asked and rise to the occasion in a lot of areas that I asked of them was something that was positive to me. And at the end of the day, how do you have so many positive things over the course of the game? You hold a team to 0 points through 3 quarters. It's our second lowest rushing total defensively that we've allowed. We rushed for 126 yards and 5 a carry. We had 4 penalties. We had 2 turnovers. We didn't turn the ball over. We were 50% on third down. I mean, there was all these things that would point to a game that you should have a chance to win. And we had chances, but the difference was for us in the game is we had really, let's call it 4 critical plays offensively that we needed to execute in a critical moment, and we did not. And that's the difference in the game. It's a game that had a chance to be a 20-10 game if we execute at best. If all the things work in our favor, that's where you end up. But we didn't do a good enough job in those critical moments of making the plays that are necessary to win a tight game. And that's the hardest part for me, is to sit here and watch the tape and see so many things that I asked of our team and they delivered on, and then to see that we just, at the end of the day, it comes down to 3 or 4 plays in critical moments that we didn't execute. And that's hard, because I think that we're still trying to build a program, and still trying to build something that's sustainable, that we can try to continue to improve on. And I look for the things that would show me that that's happening. And those are the things that I concern myself with, on top of obviously winning the football game. But there's a lot of other things that I have to look at and judge and determine where's good and where isn't, and where it has to be improved. So that's ultimately where I've come after reflection and watching the game a couple of times in all 3 phases. So with that, I'll let you guys go ahead.
Two critical plays, I guess, 2 that you referred to, probably the one where Will doesn't see Chig, and then the last pass to NWI.
Mm-hmm.
Are those the kind of plays that he has to hit? Maybe more so the first, even if he wants to kind of take that next step.
The first one, certainly. I mean, that's a touchdown play that we have to hit, and that's part of playing quarterback. And that's one that I'm sure he'll tell you the exact same thing. That's where the ball needs to go, and that's a big moment in the game on a 4th down. The second one, was actually it was a decent throw to the corner to Nick, and Nick kind of got both hands on it. Tough catch. I don't want to. That is not a gimme catch, but that's a catch that in a critical moment, if you want to win the game, those are the plays you have to make. And the other part of that is progression wise. If he comes right back down over the ball to Calvin versus to Tampa, the ball goes to Calvin, and Calvin probably walks in the end zone. So again, not faulting the decision, not faulting the throw. It's a play we have to make. But there was opportunity to score in both of those spots, and to come away with no points in critical 4th downs in a low red zone is going to usually, when you're talking about 14 total points, is going to, you're going to lose a lot of games like that. And we have to be better down there execution wise. Again, there's probably things I can do to help, play calling sequence wise and all that, but ultimately had 2 opportunities that we didn't get it done.
What did you judge the other 1 or 2 critical plays?
The play before the 4th down to Calvin, where we get the ball in his hands in the flat, and got a chance to turn up and get a first down. That would have been huge. We'd be first in goal inside the 5-yard line at that point. And that's a good place to be. And then instead now it puts us in a 4th down spot. But I thought had a chance to catch the ball and turn up. I thought Will maybe could have been a touch earlier, and Calvin just sort of lost where he was on the field a little bit. And but again, that's a big play. He's got the ball in his hands with a chance to get the first, and we don't. So puts us in a 4th down spot. Then again, we failed to convert the 4th down. So that one, and then there's a 3rd and 6 sack, the one that we gave up on the right side, where we're in the protection slide that direction. The nickel comes off the edge. Nick's got to block that guy. It's a nickel off the edge. We got to block him, and then downfield we got Chig for what's probably a 30-yard gain, and you got Calvin for a touchdown. And so those are two guys kind of wide open on a big 3rd down as we cross midfield. That, again, just an overall execution with a chance to convert that 3rd down in a big spot for an explosive gain on either side. That we fail in the protection element of it was disappointing. But those were probably those couple of plays were the biggest sequence plays that we left on the field that had chances to help us win a game.
Can you explain the design intent of the Chig miss? You bring Jeff on and you have him run out to that right side.
Yeah.
Where was Chig in the pattern there? Was he supposed to be the
He's 2 in the pattern. So it's Jeff to Chig, and you have Nick on the end line as kind of the if everything collapses down on top or the guy runs with Chig, you kind of have 2 runners away from the play action side. And then we had released John Ajoku on a route that, again, isn't really intended to go to him, but helps manage all the times we put John in the game that he at least releases at some point. And so he's really not part of the progression. Jeff is the first read. If he were to be for some reason wide open, you throw it to Jeff and you snap right to the backside, which is where Chig was on that particular play. It's a style of play we hit earlier in the drive to Wiley in a very similar, very, very, very similar play, just had a different personnel grouping.
So do you know why he didn't get to Chig as the second option in the read?
No, I think the way he explained it was he just as he went, his eyes came back, he picked up Nick first and thought that was, he didn't quite feel Chig.
for whatever reason, and ended up taking the throw to Nick. But we got to hit that throw on a 4th down that's open in the red zone.
Were both those guys in the right spot? Because normally you don't see 2 guys within a yard of each other.
Initially they were. When the ball would have been thrown, Chig was on the goal line, Nick was on the end line. And as the ball gets thrown, you see Chig sort of veer back to see if he can go make a play. And I think he was kind of surprised the ball was over his head, so he kind of turns and ends up in a spot. But if you snap the picture on where they were when the ball should have been thrown, we had right where they were supposed to be.
Brian, we talked about X's and O's and we talked about teaching.
Yep.
But ultimately, it's a results-driven business, and your job is leading.
Mm-hmm.
What's your strategy the rest of the way to lead these guys to the finish line?
To me, it's pretty straightforward. My job is to continue to build what I believe in as far as the process goes. I told this exact same thing to the team this morning that these 4 games are very important for us. They're important games, and even though we're out of playoff contention and there's nothing to play for in the postseason, these are important games for what we're trying to set for the future. And there's a time and a place to be honest. And today was one of them where, look, the season isn't what we want it to be. But there's a lot of things that I believe in our process and how we go about our business, the type of things that we do. And there's a lot of examples across the tape in that game, even of what it's supposed to look like. And that's where I trust in what we do and how we do it. And I made it very clear to the players too, that's all those things are good. We're doing things the right way. We haven't seen the results we needed to see. We've lost some close games. We've lost games that I felt like we've been in position to win and haven't made a play or two to win. But I still think you always go back to when you're trying to build a foundation for what's going to be hopefully sustainable success in the future. These things all matter. Every bit of it matters. And how we play in these games matters. How we finish the season matters. How we practice every day still matters. We got a lot of young players. We got people that are going to be here. Every year you change your roster, but there's a lot of players here that are going to be here for 2025. And it's a huge part of getting ready to continue to build for what comes next. And I think it's okay to be honest about that and say that, but that's a huge part of what these next 4 games are is continue to try to set the foundation for what's expected in the future and try to continue to build on what I think are a lot of really good and positive things from a process standpoint and a people standpoint that I think will lead to wins and success moving forward. And we haven't had a chance to show that with 3 wins, obviously. And then there's been moments we've played a brand of football that's not good enough. And we got to keep finding ways to fix that and keep moving forward.
You feel certain there is a future
Oh, what do you mean?
for you?
Oh, yeah, I don't worry about that stuff. That's not for me to worry about. I do everything every day to do my job the best way I possibly can. I put everything into this as much as there's nobody that thinks about how to build this program and what we need to do more than I do. And so, yeah, I don't worry myself with anything other than that at this point. And again, there's things that I can't control. And so I don't focus on that. I focus on what it's going to take to build a program that and build a foundation to a program that's going to allow us to have success in the future. That's my only focus. That's the only thing I think about.
As you look at these last 4 games, like for you personally, obviously this week you're coming up against, Cincinnati. How big is that game for you guys to win? Or is it just, hey, this is just the next game? Like, how do you approach that?
Yeah, it's just the next game. I don't have, it's different when you're, it's not like it's a job that you got let go from or you have any animosity towards. I have a lot of respect for everybody in that building, the players, the coaches, and it was a lot of really formative time for me. It was a really fun time to be a part of that organization. We built a pretty awesome product during my time there. And yeah, I want to win every game, just like I do, no matter who it is. A lot of respect, but doesn't factor in. It doesn't motivate me to go do anything different because again, I don't have any ill feelings towards anybody in that place. And I certainly want to win the game. And I want to beat them, but it doesn't, my approach and my perspective on it is that it's still just a game that I want to play well in and have a chance to go win.
That was Tennessee Titans head coach Brian Callahan addressing reporters. Teron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation reporter, will join us following the news conference, but we will react to what we've heard. Coming up next, Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, and Adam Vingan here with you. We just heard from Tennessee Titans head coach Brian Callahan. He came prepared, Willie. He knew that there were going to be questions about the positive things that they did.
As we predicted in the first hour of the show.
Yes.
That would be the case. Just the way the game of media relations
We
work.
picked out 3 of the 4, didn't we?
We
had 3
did.
of the 4.
We did. Let's do this before we start the discussion this hour. It is today the 1 year anniversary of the death of our good friend Frank Wycheck, Titan legend. So just want to say shout out to all that enjoyed him, watched him play, listened to him on the radio. A big part of the Major League sports history of this town, as we talked about a year ago in the wake of his death. But we miss him. We miss him. Just want to say that.
He was a instrumental part of the fabric, not just of the Tennessee Titans, like you said. Well, not just sports landscape, but more importantly, the Tennessee Titans. He was one of 3 or 4 ambassadors when we moved here, along with Eddie and Blaine and Steve. He was one of those guys that was an ambassador for the Titans, to represent them here in Nashville when everybody's trying to get to know us. And he was a good friend of many people. So, you don't think about this day, and I'm sure his family, this is probably a hard time for them. So my prayers will continue to go out to his family, his daughters. But it just seemed like surreal in a sense that a year later, it's like, this is the day that Frankie passed away. So
ambassador is a good word, just from a lot of different angles. So we miss him.
What did you guys make of what we heard from Brian Callahan during his news conference?
I think he hit on 3 of the things that we talked about. The throw to Chig, the throw to Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. And then there was another one in there that we talked about. But I brought up the 4th one. Well, the pass to Calvin Ridley toward the sideline. Get it there a little bit quicker. Maybe he can turn up the field. But these are things that when you are not a good team, as a whole, you're not a good team. Those are things you got to capitalize on. You have to capitalize because you're not good enough. You're not, the Kansas City Chiefs. You're not the Baltimore Ravens. You're not the LA Chargers. You're not the Buffalo Bills. You can't miss a wide open guy and figure, I'll get it back because we got the quarterback that can do it. No. When you have opportunities, you got to take full advantage of them. And the Titans didn't. And they're not good enough to be able to go out there and try to, make up for the opportunities that they missed. So, I think what he said was spot on. I think his play calling too. I think his play calling was good. But like he said, listen, there are open areas within the game. Our quarterback just has to find it, or he has to have time to find it. I didn't think, as you brought up, Adam, earlier, I don't think that rushing, people getting to Will Levis was the problem. I think they did a better job than they had been. I think yesterday was more so about Will Levis and not being able to, read the thing outright, read the play outright than anything else.
He did get the job security question from Paul Kaharski.
Why?
It's too early for that.
Dropped out of the sky. Even he was taken aback at that, as he should be. Like, he's his first year. I don't think that's the question to a first year head coach. I don't think he made some blatant screw up in the game management yesterday or anything. I thought that question was, like I said, completely out of left field. So I wasn't focused on that. I did find it interesting that after his comments of starting off with positives in a loss where you score 6 against a bad team, I think he rethought it, looked at it, and said, okay, I do need to address that, and did before the question started. And then, as we predicted, once he went into those, then he was sort of grilled on, well, what were the positives? And then what were those key plays? He fell back on, we didn't make the winning plays at the winning time. And that has probably cost them a few wins. They're in this league. It is not that it's never that far away from a team being about 500, right? A bad team can usually say what the Titans have said. And I think we would agree that if you look at 3 or 4 games, they've either given the game away or with a few key plays at key times, would they have won 3 more games and they'd be a little closer to what the expectations were? Yes. And at the same time, I think there's usually a team in the league that is 2 or 3 games over 500 where they're sitting there going, boy, we've been lucky. We got a little, like last night, the Chiefs, who were 11-1, that's an extreme. They're now 12-1. They almost missed a 31-yard field goal or whatever it was. Everybody's celebrating. All you got to do is the guy hit the upright. If it bounces the other way, they have a shocking loss, and you're saying, finally, the Chiefs didn't win the close game. There's so many close games in this league. I think you're never very far. The Chiefs aren't a good example, but for most teams, you're never very far from 500. And so all these little things, and then you start looking at the layers. Are we making those key plays? How is our roster strength? How is our injury level? There's a lot of things that you can't predict, but I still see a first-year head coach trying to go through it. And I think a veteran head coach probably wouldn't have had to start the press conference that way.
No. And first, let me say this. Do I think it was too early to ask Brian Callahan about job security? Yes. I mean, listen, this team was bad last year. The roster didn't improve that much. At the bottom, moving up, did they improve at the top half? Yeah, but those guys are injured, so it is what it is. But they didn't improve from the bottom up. So when you look at Brian Callahan and you assess the job that he's doing his first year, the only way you ask that question is not because you think that he's going to be fired, because you know that more than likely a first-year head coach is going to have his trials. You know, they're not going to be able to turn it around. Some teams do in 1 year, but majority of the teams, it takes some time. But you ask that question, why? Because of the owner. Because of the owner doing things that it just seems like, and I'm not saying it is, but it seems like to people that was just one of those, oh, I'm doing it and never really think it out. It's like, oh, I don't like it. I'm changing it right now, and I'm not going to think about what the repercussions would be to my organization or my team. So if you got people thinking that, then they're going to ask the question. Under any other circumstance, they probably wouldn't ask that question. They would know first-year head coach, yeah, it needs to get better next year. We can start talking about this next year if it doesn't get better, but the first year, not really. But because your owner, you know, in many eyes, is sort of cavalier in a sense, then you can ask that question. Are you, worried about your job security moving forward or your future, however he phrased it? So,
you could tell he was a little shocked.
Yeah, he was shocked. Yeah. But when your owner does some of the things that she has done in the eyes of many people, you tend to want to ask that question, like, are you considering the win-loss and how it all looked? And then if, the stands were basically empty yesterday, second game in a row, are you worried about your job?
Is it going to take, did you see what happened in New York yesterday? Giants were playing at home against the Saints, and someone hired one of those prop planes that you see on the beach with the banner hanging behind it that said, Mr. Mara, in reference to the owner, Mr. Mara, please fix this dumpster fire. Is it going to take someone flying a plane over Nissan Stadium saying,
somebody will do it now.
Miss Amy, please fix this dumpster fire?
The last time I saw a prop plane over a Titans game, it wasn't really the Titans. It was the Oilers, the Tennessee Oilers at Vanderbilt Stadium.
Oh, wow. I'm glad we didn't. I didn't see
D-Man, do you remember this?
I don't think
you
I
remember.
Do.
Okay.
Ooh, no.
The prop plane flying over, it was almost every week. in that season at Vanderbilt. Deja vu.
Oh
It's
Lord.
an ad for Deja vu. If you don't know what it is, just look it up.
Yeah.
If you've
It's
been
still
in
open.
Nashville for-
Yeah,
It's still
here.
open.
Yeah.
And go to your point.
So it was not a message to the owner.
No,
but
it was a message to all
people
the
who-
guys.
The
You know,
fans
Mike-
after the game.
Yeah,
Exactly.
certain
Go down the
fans.
street. Yeah, that's what they were saying. To answer to sort of piggyback on what you were saying about how the league, wants this to be, as closely contested as possible. They want parity across the board. And you look at, I can name the teams that win close games. We all know them. Those are the great teams or with a great quarterback. But look at a team like Chicago Bears. There hasn't been many of their losses they've had this year. There was more than 6 points, 6 or 7 points. So they were always in a one-score affair toward the end of the game. But because that roster isn't where it needs to be, and possibly they may not have the right head coach, you tend to lose those close games. While on the flip side of that, Kansas City, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, teams, the Lions, they win those close games because they have the roster and they have the quarterback that can win them those close games. The Titans can't win those close games. Why? Because they don't truly have the quarterback that has proven he can win those close, because they've had more close games than not.
Yeah. The other thing that separates, I think, the teams that are really good have 3 or 4 games a year where they overpower the bad teams. It's like playing Jacksonville. Is it possible Jacksonville could hang with the Chiefs? Yeah, the Chiefs just had trouble with the Panthers a couple of weeks ago. So on any given Sunday, we know how the saying goes. But over the course of the year, the really good teams are going to overpower 3 or 4 opponents and get wins. The teams like the Titans, they don't have that. Their margin for error isn't like that. They're not going to overwhelm opponents. In fact, it's the opposite. 2 or 3 times they're going to get overmatched by good teams, which has happened to them. So that is where you separate. A lot of times I would put the Ravens in there. I don't see how they've lost as many games as they have, really, but they're so powerful. They're going to be there at the end.
615-737-1025. Teron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, will join us to discuss the Titans' 10-6 loss to the Jaguars. That's coming up next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Let's talk Loan Pronto. 2025 is just around the corner now. The calendar is getting a little thin. If you got one of those paper calendars where rip off the day every time, maybe it's the joke of the day or maybe something like that. But stop letting your troubles of 2024 financially, if you've got some loans or if you've got some credit card bills and you're just looking for a new game plan in 2025, you've got a solution if you're a homeowner, and that is Loan Pronto's Rapid Equity Loan. They're even faster than they were before. They use AI-driven tech to get you approved for cash out to knock out that car payment by the end of 2025 or the end of 2024 or early in 2025, or knock that credit card bill down to 0 and you get a fresh start for 2025, because they can get that cash out quickly. They can approve you in 1 day, under 24 hours. So instant approvals, low fixed rates, fast transfers. Get cash to consolidate your debt. Get on better footing to start the new year. Call Loan Pronto and see how much you can qualify for. This time next week, you could be on your way to being credit card debt-free. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 1661781 on approved credit, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
D Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you, joined on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, by ESPN, NFL Nation Titans reporter, Teron Davenport. Teron, a disheartening, a discouraging, whatever word you want to use to describe the Titans' loss to the Jaguars yesterday. As you watched that game, and I'm sure you've watched a lot of it back already, what was the most discouraging aspect of the Titans' performance for you in the game yesterday?
Yeah, I think the most discouraging one, well, there's two, and Brian Callahan hit the nail on the head when he talked about it. And the two plays, man, big opportunities were left. And obviously the Chig-Okonkwo one, we were literally just talking about that in the media room just now. You know, Chig was wide open, and you do have to see that. And it's something that you can't miss, especially in a game where points are at such a premium. But then the other one, and it was frustrating watching it live. Jerry Johnson is a player out of Florida State that I really liked him coming out. Ultimate nickelback, and he had a pass breakup on Calvin Ridley on a slant, and then he came back on the very next play and they rushed him from the opposite side, and he just dipped right under Nicholas Petit-Ferrer's attempt to block, and he sacked him. And man, I tell you what, Calvin Ridley was wide open on the play, and he catches that and splits the safeties and probably goes a while. And Chig-Okonkwo was open deep down the field too. So just when you see those types of things and know what was left on the table, it does get frustrating, if you look at it from a Titans perspective.
Especially, Teron, as you know, against one of the worst defenses in the NFL in the Jacksonville Jaguars. But we know that the Titans have officially, I emphasize that word, officially been eliminated from postseason contention. It was a formality, but they are now out of the running for the postseason. So no playoffs in Tennessee again this year. What do you think we're going to learn about Brian Callahan over these next few games now that the Titans really don't have anything to play for in terms of standings wise? What do you think we're going to learn about Callahan and how he handles the group over these next 4 or 5 weeks?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this team is. And you look at after the game, Jeffrey Simmons here said he's tired of seeing Levis get his block knocked off and tired of seeing him squirreling around on the ground. I want to see how Callahan is able to keep the wagon circled, so to speak, and not allowing these guys to splinter or to, point fingers or have back and forth. And there's nothing wrong with what Jeffrey Simmons said, especially in the context that it was put. So please understand, I'm not saying what he said was wrong, but what I do want to see is how Callahan is able to keep the ship going in the right direction and how he's able to get the buy-in, because guys are professionals, but how are you going to continue to get them to understand, hey, there's still something to play for. It's pride, and it's also building momentum into next year.
We'll talk with the Teron Davenport discussing the Tennessee Titans 10-6 loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, Awuzie came back yesterday, and he showed himself in the lineup, had an interception. In talking with him after the game, how did he feel being his first game back in weeks or months? And do you believe that, if he was on the field along with L'Jarius Sneed for, let's just say, 80% of the season thus far, do you think this would be a much better secondary or defense?
Yeah, Awuzie was gone before we got into the locker room. You kind of got to pick, okay, is it Levis or is it everybody? And that was one of the times where Levis was my pick. And so I didn't get to talk to him. But, I think there would be a better defense if he and Sneed were on the field. But, I don't think the pass defense was that bad. I don't know that they are, so difference makers in the outcomes of the games. Because, look, this team was, 0-3 with both of them in the lineup. Because we know Awuzie was out in the Dolphins game. Sneed played, obviously, but he didn't play all that well. So it's tough to say, but, I would imagine they would be a bit better just because those guys are better players.
Now, what do you say? Because we talked to you before the game, TD, and we talked a little bit about, the temperature there at the game. What did the crowd look like? What is sort of the feel of the game? And obviously, there was nobody there at the point at which we talked to you. It wasn't many people there. What was the vibe after? During the game, was it still more than half full, or how was the crowd there? Because ultimately the owner's there and she's seen all this. Not only has she seen a bad team on the field, she's seen her stadium basically empty.
Yeah, and in addition to that, she's at all of the home games and she's at the road games, so she gets to see the stadiums filled on the road games that she goes to, and she gets to stand there or sit in the booth in the box there in the suite and not hear Titans fans chanting or doing that. So it's a dual experience for her because, look, man, I don't recall ever hearing Duval chants at Nissan Stadium, but that's exactly what we heard. And the attendance, it remained just like it was. And then once Calvin Ridley, when he ran out of bounds, I mean, people, and the ball fell incomplete to NWI, people, they started leaving. So, yeah, it's definitely got to be bad as an owner to see all this happen. It just comes down to if she's able to understand that they're building, and it's definitely not where it needs to be, but there's progress that they hope to make. And I think that was the point Brian Callahan delivered in his press conference today.
I see a tough dilemma here, TD, because on one hand, it's almost impossible to resist. And I used a couple of recent Patriots games. They desperately need high picks, but they're able to sell a little bit of hope because Drake May's playing pretty well, but it's working out well, like in the recent game against the Colts, where he leads them to a go-ahead touchdown late, and then the defense gives up the winning score at the very end, and they lose by 1 point. But you can kind of walk that line of, hey, our quarterback looks pretty good. We just need some other players. And still they're securing a high pick in the draft right here. The Titans are in a tough spot because I can see Brian Callahan. He needs some credibility. He needs to keep the locker room, and a couple of wins could go a long way for him at his quarterback, but that would also knock them down a few pegs. And with them mathematically eliminated here, I think that scenario is going to even be bigger in these last few games.
Yeah, this whole thing about losing for a higher draft pick, and listen, if you're not 1 and 2, I don't really think it matters if you're anywhere from 3 to 9, 3 to 10, just to be honest with you. Because look, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter. Okay, outside of those guys, do you really see a difference between you're talking about the other prospects available, whether you see an Abdul Carter, you know what I mean? Whether you look at who, in my opinion, Abdul Carter should be the target, frankly, because he's probably the edge guy with the most juice coming off the edge. But there are an assortment of them. So it is okay, the tank could get a better prospect, but if you're not tanking to get to 1 or 2, then it's really not a difference.
So your early look, and I hate to go down this road now because it's much more important, as you said, how does the team look? How does the quarterback look? Are they moving in the right direction? But is this a strong draft at the top from what you can see right now, or have you not really delved into it enough yet?
Well, it depends on what you want. Let's say it's really not quarterback priority where the team doesn't go in and say, we've got to take a quarterback. So take those guys out. What about the rest of the guys floating around the top of the draft? Yeah, I mean, I think there are some pretty good edge options. I think, you look at cornerback, there's some good cornerback options. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's not a draft that's chock full of future Hall of Famers, but there's some good prospects. And I think that there's prospects that match what the Titans need. Because you also look at the receiver part of it, Ted McMillan he's a special player. I saw, I forget who it was. I think it was Bleacher Report. They compared him to T. Higgins. And once they made that comparison, I said, wow, that's really on point, because you see that same type of play And then you also look at Luther Burden, the third, who is my favorite receiver in this draft. They need a returner, but then you also need a guy that could just, hey, man, let me get the ball in your hands and you just go do what you do and get us some yards. And that's exactly what he does.
You mentioned the edge rushers. And yesterday, the Titans give up 10 points, and it's another game where you're saying, okay, they only gave up 10 points, but how well did the defense really play? I said to myself a number of times during the game, especially when one of the lead stories early in the game from the broadcast was the Jaguars tackle woke up ill. They have to go with their backup tackle. You find out that the day of the game. They haven't game planned to have the backup in there. I was disappointed knowing that, just from afar, that they could not get more heat on Mac Jones. What did you think there?
Yeah, no, it was a disappointment that they couldn't get more pressure and heat on him. And there was even a time where you look at that big play to Brian Thomas, you had that pressure coming and you had the backside, drop by Arden Key. And everybody's like, well, how the heck do you have Arden Key on Brian Thomas? Well, the way that it was supposed to work was the pressure was supposed to get there. And they did get a little bit of pressure, but Mac Jones escaped and Brian Thomas turned the route up and boom. And that has been something that has continuously killed this defense, where a quarterback is able to extend the play by eluding pressure and finding a way to either run for a good while or throw the ball for a good while. And that's exactly what happened to set up the game-winning touchdown by the Jaguars late in the game yesterday.
Teron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, joining us as he does every Monday to break down another Titans loss. TD, always a pleasure, my friend. We'll talk next week.
I don't know how you're going to let me up off this phone and not say
the Mets.
Okay, hold on.
I thought I've got TD. I've got my Mets hat on.
Yes,
I have been flaunting it from the moment I came.
A
in the
gross
studio.
Oversight on my part.
I just didn't want to,
Yeah.
rub it in too much to people because I know TD and I exchanged text messages minutes after the story broke. I mean, minutes right after.
You like that Cody Sanger gift?
Oh, yes, I did. I was
listen.
having a little party last night by myself.
I'm Mets down. I'm Mets down from the head to the toe. I got my Doc Gooden fitted on.
Are you guaranteeing a World Series within the next 2 years? Are you guaranteeing it?
I'm not going to guarantee that because I still got to see what's left to do. And that team over in L.A., I was ready to rumble Josh Kelly yesterday about that. He talking about go Dodgers. He's from L.A., the Titans running back. I told him, hey, watch your mouth, man. Don't let this bow tie fool you.
Hey, listen.
All I'm
if
asking,
y'all paid him $760-something million, then yeah, y'all should have bought a World Series with that.
Yeah, I mean, look, they got closer. I'll put it that way.
all I'm asking,
Not how the game works.
all I'm asking is that Grimace gets a cut of the proceeds. That's
Hey, send him a cut.
that's all I'm
hey,
asking.
To your credit, Adam, you'll be happy that he has his own seat. They painted it purple.
Oh
It's
yeah.
right in the right field. I went and visited when I went to Game 3. It's right there.
That's right. Grimace deserves his own seat at Citi Field. Teron, congratulations on the signing. Thank you for joining us as always.
There you go. That's a better sign off. Thank you.
Teron Davenport. Oversight on my part, but Teron, as we know, a very even-keeled individual. So I didn't want to get him too riled up about it, but you can tell he's excited.
We're excited. We're excited. You have to be excited.
Until
But
you-
we have been burned before, so
Exactly.
I'm
So
tempering.
you got to
I'm
temper
tempering.
the excitement.
Yeah.
Eric, by the way, on our text line says Soto is the new Bonilla. Congratulations from Eric, the angry Yankees fan up in Buffalo.
I would imagine he's not the only angry Yankees fan out there
Yes.
today.
Well, we heard Brian Callahan in his news conference get asked about his job security. He is not the only professional coach in town to be asked that question today. We will discuss that next. Willie Dunnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
All right, Lee Company. Time to tell you about them. They've been in service since 1944. Big sponsor of Nashville Predators hockey. the Preds back in action tomorrow night against the Calgary Flames. And you will see the Lee Company display all around Bridgestone Arena. We'll see if the Predators can get back on track. Lee Company will always have you on track when it comes to your home. It's a little warmer today, but make sure that year-round you have the coverage you're looking for when it comes to your heating unit, your air conditioning unit, your plumbing and electrical systems in your house. It's what makes your house run. Our house was built in 1913. So over time, and we've been in the house for a long time now, every now and then you do need repairs. And that's why Lee Company has a great system called the Home Maintenance Plan. They give you annual checkups. They'll see what's going on with those systems, and they will tell you when it's about time to get some maintenance. And when it does happen, you get discounts on that maintenance. Just call and learn more. 615-567-1000 or leecompany.com. That's 615-567-1000 or leecompany.com. Lee Company, in service in our listening area since 1944.
Andrew, anytime a team is losing, questions about job security come up. Is that something that you're concerned about right now?
I think in our business we're terminal, in my business anyways, and it's just like all of us in life. I don't think we overly concerned about it. When it happens, it happens. In saying that, it is what it is. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's game. I think something's bound to break, and hopefully it breaks tomorrow.
If you talk to Barry, but you talk to Barry a lot, right? I'm sure.
Yeah.
Things like that, does that come up or?
Things like what? My job?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure it comes up every day. I don't really spend a whole lot of time. I just worried about the present. I'm worried about doing the best job I can do. I'm worried about helping this team. And I feel, there's certain nights that we left some things on the board. It could be a totally different story sitting here talking to you today. But we are where we're at, and all we can do is focus on tomorrow.
That was Predators head coach Andrew Brunette earlier today after practice. The Predators wrap up their road trip over the weekend with a loss at the Ottawa Senators, if not for a garbage time goal by Fedor Svechkov. The Predators would have been shut out in back-to-back games, but they lose 3-1 at Ottawa. The winless streak has hit 7 games, 0-4-3. It is their longest winless streak in more than 11 years. April of 2013, they dropped 8 consecutive games in either overtime or regulation. So it has been more than 11 years since the Nashville Predators have lost 7 games in a row. Willie, I have to imagine it's difficult. I mean, look, it's difficult for us, and we talk about it, you on the air as well, having to try to explain the issues this team is having offensively. But I believe it is now up to 19 of 28 games this season that the Predators have been held to 2 or fewer goals. If my memory serves, they scored 2 or fewer goals in 29 total games last season. So they're more than halfway there already. And understandably, there have been questions about Andrew Burnett's job security. I've talked about it. I heard Jared talk about it. I read a column in the Tennessean by Gentry Estes today talking about it. It's the name of the game, especially in the NHL. So the Predators have an opportunity tomorrow at home against the Calgary Flames to try to win their first game in a few weeks. And I think tomorrow's game is going to be interesting. It's much different when these situations happen at home than when on the road. So I am curious to see what the crowd reception is like tomorrow, especially if the Predators get off to a slow start.
Yeah, it's right now it is really baffling to watch a team just as stuck in the mud as they are right now. They're just stuck. And the harder they try to get moving, it's like quicksand. The harder they try to move, it just seems like they're getting deeper and more stuck. And every time you think that they are making some small, modest gains, which that was the theme I was on. And I quite honestly, that was the team's theme going into that road trip, that they had points in 8 out of 11. And it was solely fixated on just not getting the goals. And then you slide back and you go from leading going into the third period in Toronto against a good team to losing that game and then turning around and losing to 2 mediocre at best teams where you don't score either. And so it is a step back. So you think you're building your house a little bit more only to have it go back. And now you're at the foundation again, trying to start from scratch. So I can understand the questions. And I think Andrew Brunette, to his credit, he was ready to answer that question and did not just try to blow it off, right? I think he was ready to answer that question because, as Hal Gill points out a lot, when a team with expectations struggles the way they have, it's natural. Something has to give. Something has to be the shakeup. And so, that's where they are right now. I don't put it all on Andrew Brunette. I scatter it all throughout, as Barry Trotz has said. But it is really something to watch right now, how much they are struggling. It was unthinkable that they could struggle to this level. Right now, there's still a ton of hockey to be played, but they're so deep in the hole right now, they could play really well from tomorrow forward. And they're going to have to not just do that. They have to go on a remarkable run. They've put themselves so far behind that it will be very tough to crawl out of this year.
Willie, I'm sorry, Dick. No, you go ahead.
No, I was going to say there has to be a point. There was a point in the season, I believe, where you had opportunities to do some significant things. And we talked about those things. We know you can't cut nobody. It's hard to trade somebody, but you can try to do those significant things that may shake up sort of the lineup and may shake up, to add some spark. I think there was a point in the season where you could do that early on. Now I think they're in a spot where no matter if you make those changes or not, this team from a psychological standpoint, and it's hard for me to say, but I think they're done from a cycle. Will they go on a mini run? They could possibly win 2 games in a row, 3 games here and there. But I think as a whole, considering what the expectations were, I'm not sure that this team will or can do the necessary things to change their fortunes around. I don't think Bruno's a bad coach. I don't think he just all of a sudden forgot how to coach. So that's why I'm not calling for his job this year, but something changed this year. And maybe the expectations were, which I'm sure they were, we bring in these high-powered guys, these high-paid guys, and considering what we did last year, we're just adding on, we're not subtracting. We should be a much better team. But you didn't factor in the chemistry, how long it was going to take, if it even happened, for this team to mesh. You just can't throw superstars out there and expect, oh, it's going to change right then. Even with superstars, it still takes some time.
What I was going to say was, we talked about this last week, Willie, about some of the changes that Brunette made to his system in an attempt to spark the offense. And I thought Sportsnet had a really good breakdown of this before the game last week in Toronto. I shared it with you, and I know that you and your broadcast team have discussed it as well. And what I decided to do was, the earliest clip that Sportsnet showed was the home game against Utah before they went on the 5-game road trip. So I use that as sort of the dividing line. Let's just say that's the earliest example. And I believe you told me that's around the time you first started hearing the simplified,
made some tweaks. Yeah.
Right. So I looked at their fancy stats before that game, or up until that game, and afterwards. And as you pointed out to me, they have made gains in several key areas at 5-on-5 in terms of generating offensive zone possession time and scoring chances and slot shots on net, expected goals, all of the fancy terms.
Right. Modest.
They
Modest
have
is what I said to you. It's
yes.
And really the tweaks have led to better defensive play to give them a chance to win games 3-2, which is really what's been on the table a lot here. They could have won a bunch of games 3-2 if they just find extra goals, but keep going.
Right. So they have made modest gains in those areas. Of course, the problem is it hasn't led to success because they can't score. So even for me, someone who believes in those numbers and relies on those numbers to tell me what I'm seeing, it's hard for me to put any stock into them or significant stock into them because they're not scoring goals. And it continues to boggle my mind how this team, with so much firepower, what they had last season, what they brought in, can't score. It gets to the point where the Predators fall behind 2-0, right? In the first period against Ottawa, they were down 2-0, or was that the second period?
Second period.
They were
scoreless going into the second, and it was still scoreless about midway through the second. 2 goals, and then the psychological weight you can see hit.
My point is that when it became 2-0, when Claude Giroux scored, I think it went off of Steven Stamkos and into the net, I just thought to myself, game's over. Like, I don't think the Predators are going to score 2 goals to tie this game.
And it's up to them to break the psychological barrier. But as you can tell, when you watch them, the weight is palpable. You can see it, that they're down on confidence, and it makes it even tougher. We can talk about the numbers and everything. That's one thing, but they have to break through the psychological barrier. They're squeezing. We talked about Will Levis holding the ball that fraction of a second. I think there's a lot going on. There's moments in the game where Steven Stamkos, Philip Forsberg, great goal scorers, not just good goal scorers, great goal scorers, 40-plus goal scorers, are hesitating, missing the target, and it's everything that could go wrong. Bouncing pucks, you mentioned one that goes off of Steven Stamkos and into the Predator net. They can't get a bounce to come back. So it's like everything coming together at one time. It's the perfect storm of a struggling team, and now you add on top, the weakest position on the team is center depth. and they have lost their top center in Ryan O'Reilly. That's another tough blow on top of all these other things they're dealing with. So it's going to be an intriguing game tomorrow night, to say the least, against the Flames, who have overachieved.
Predators Flames tomorrow at Bridgestone Arena, 7 o'clock. We will be there for our program, of course, starting at 11. Stillman and Company coming up next, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Be loved, love the people, love all your be loved. My goodness. Be loved,
Spit it out,
love all
Derek.
your neighbors. Have a wonderful and blessed Monday. Peace out.